Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Weiss. I'm director of the Workforce Science Project at Northwestern University. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Dean Carter for a conversation with Richard Rosenau on his new book, Employee Experience Design. We are thrilled to have Dean with us. He has been a generous supporter, really a co-founder of this community from the early days. And we both remember meeting in the Sears Tower where he was CHRO, and he has been with us, supporting us every step of the way through his roles at Chief People Officer. Well, I think it was more than that at Patagonia and at Guild. And he has a really exciting new role that I'm sure Richard and he will discuss as CEO at Instill. And along with him, we have Richard, who is a key thought leader in people analytics. He's now VP of People Analytics Strategy at Icona. Very exciting conversation. We want you to be part of it, so drop your questions in the chat at any time. Share your LinkedIn profiles with fellow attendees. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard and Dean.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and thank you so much to the Workforce Science Project and the TALREOS community for putting these series together. I feel like the luckiest attendee because I get to ask Dean a whole bunch of questions, and Dean's a fascinating person to talk to. But with that too, I'll emphasize, throw things in the chat, throw things in the Q&A. I've got them both open. Very excited to synthesize and bring those in too. But Dean, congratulations. It's a big week. You got a lot going on. We're excited to talk to you about it, but let's talk about your book. Okay. You've teamed up with Mark Levy and Samantha Gadd to write this. You've come together from different perspectives, different areas. What brought the three of you together to write this book right now?
That's a really good question. By the way, just thank you so much. Okay. It's been just a delight to work with you, and also for all this time. And Deborah, who knew that little coffee that we had in Chicago, like, hey, we should put together and bring a bunch of people who are, because we got tired of going to conferences where people are like, raise your hand about people analytics, like, how do you get started? I'm like, oh my gosh, how do we just bring in people who've actually gotten started and really jam on kind of some cutting edge cool stuff? And that's where it started. So it's amazing to see the commitment from Deborah and the group and what it's become, because I'm a big, big, big believer in the only thing that really matters with HR is if you can put data behind it. Otherwise, it's irrelevant. And a big believer in this role. And obviously, Ian quite well. So the book, I've traveled in, similar circles with Mark Levy for a very long time. And we were doing some interesting things at Patagonia about the same time he was doing some stuff at Airbnb. And what happened was Sam in New Zealand runs an employee experience group that is really focused on the humanity in humans. And she has a really, really big following in New Zealand and Australia. So she called Mark and said, hey, I'm thinking about this, like, how do we really define employee experience with like maybe a manifesto? And then she called me, and a bunch of people met in Austin to create this employee experience manifesto. What we didn't know is all three of us had signed up for a trip to Bhutan. And so we met in Bhutan. It was like, wow, you're going too, and I'm going. And we just talked a lot about employee experience and what was going on. And none of us wanted to write a book. That was universally, but none of us wanted to do that. Who needs another HR book? And but we thought the story was good to tell, and especially in this moment when employee experience is in a tank. And how do we lean in on some concepts we think that would need to be shared and could be really, really helpful for employees and companies and who really want to drive business and amazing experiences. So that's where it came from, and we got together. So actually, I didn't know that Mark lived 2 blocks from me. We met each other on a dog walk in a park. I was like, Mark? He's like, Dean? I'm like, and then we walked back. I'm like, I'm thinking about we should write a book. That's where it started. And then we wrote it, and then we launched it thinking we'd sell a few copies. And then within 3 days, it's the #1 bestseller on Amazon and HR books.
Incredible.
It was like, wow.
It's well deserved. It's an incredible geographic story to go from Austin to Bhutan to 2 blocks away from your house to pull this book together. I think that's an incredible story.
Yeah. It's and they're both really amazing people. It's just a delight to work with them. The one thing we said, let's write this, and we're great friends. If this book gets in the way, any of the friendship or whatever, it's dead. So this is we're just doing this because we all want to jam together and have a good time, and we think that this is story needs to be told from three very unique perspectives, but have some overlap. And that's why we wrote it, and we're still good
That's
friends.
incredible. So as you're thinking about this book, I imagine that there's the book you intend to write together, then there's the book that actually comes out as you finish writing. I'd love to hear a little bit about when you set out on this journey together, you said, hey, we intend to do something with this book, and maybe some of those surprises along the way too.
And there's always a surprise. You start writing a book. The title, we didn't know what that was going to be. There are lots of things that we've all three of us have learned. None of us are writers. So, we work with someone else to help us write. We can tell stories, but none of us are writers. They're and they're putting a structure around the experiences at Sears and Patagonia and Fossil and Guild combined with Airbnb and Gap and then this experiences in New Zealand, putting those together in a structure that makes sense was probably a big challenge. And so how to do that. And then one of the things we wanted to do was that it wasn't just about us. We brought in really, five really amazing other people who've done employee experiences in great ways. And we want to hear their story and share theirs and go, okay, this isn't the way and the truth. This is like meant to be inspiring. The intent always wanted to be a handbook and not a paperweight. We wanted to be enduring, not just like a book of the moment and book of the year, and you get it and you kind of go, okay. And we wanted to be usable and practical. And so we also wanted to bring stories, not just ours. So we brought in, Beth Grouse and Christy Lloyd and Melanie Rosser and Greg Pryor and Michelle Bonafilo from Gap and Workday and Dropbox and all
It's an
these really
incredible group.
amazing stories. And they shared them. They're beautiful. Their five stories are much interesting than anything we wrote in the book. Yeah.
Oh, it's an incredible group to pull together. I think as we go from like the citywide view of this book to let's get down to the street level, let's
Yeah.
talk about the word employee experience because that itself is not a word that's easy to pin down for many people. Could you talk about how you grappled with that and where did you end up when you say employee experience? What do you mean by that?
There's a lot we talked about, like even the word we debated employee.
Mm,
Because, we talked about even just lifting it up to like the experience at work, because employee implies someone who's like a paid full-time, part-time person, but the people getting work done now and even more in the future are going to be fractional, maybe not employees, maybe consultants, maybe people who do, have, portfolio careers, people doing little bits of this work. So how work gets done by agents and AI. And so the concept, was easy to say in the past to some extent. By the way, when I first started, the number one thing we needed to figure out with people analytics is how many employees do we have?
Still
I
a challenge for
know
many teams,
that's a
unfortunately,
very
but
basic question,
Yeah.
but no one could ever answer that question. Like, how many employees do we have? That was a long time to get to that answer.
yeah.
So I don't know if you remember that, but that was and so we struggled with how do we define that, and we decided just to leave it with as employee and let the world kind of work through what that means. So the structure is designed it could be employee, AI agents, whatever that is, but the concept is around the people who are most close to this should be a part of the designing process. And that's really what the broad part of the conversation is. There's two things. One is, the big surprise was we needed to write a model, and that we even needed to define Blue Experience was a big deal. So that's how we got to it. So it's going to be, whatever we define it as today, it's going to change tomorrow and it's going to change again. And so the definition of work, we just left it at that. And then we thought about the concept of experiences, which we actually tried to break down into like, these are experiences. Everything is an experience. The experience you have with technology, experience you have with the front desk, which we actually talk about. Every single moment is a defining experience for you to elevate your brand, have a great experience, not experience. And I think that's part of the book too, is like, isn't the experience isn't that experience you have in a room in a meeting always. It's all of the experiences that you have from the moment you go to the front desk to the moment that you leave the company. And that's what we ended up defining it as. These are all finding the moments that matter and moments of truth. And how do you make sure that you're really sharp in those? But that's where we landed.
Yeah, Dean, that's really helpful. As I think about this too, it feels like there was a era of humans as capital. Capital does work for us, and that's what they're doing there. Then there was kind of an
Yeah.
era of maybe overcorrecting that got into like ping pong tables and beanbags and kind of like there was that sort of like
Yeah.
uh
It's
and then
nice.
this sort of next phase of how do we actually design work? And I really like how you've approached it here. Could you talk a little bit about how you've approached design and employee experience in this book that's a little bit different than previous eras?
Yeah, what we're the first part of it is there it's real easy to hire a consulting group or whatever and go, hey, we really need more help on our employee experience, and they tell you what to do, and then you put in some program around employee experience, and that's worked for everyone else. What what we wanted to bring forward is it's not ubiquitous. There's no such as peanut butter employee experience. Each company and each person in those are individuals, and so you need to bring them into the process. And this is a really important concept of the book. Is like this is bringing employees in, and the second part of this that I think is a little different is as we AI roles, we're noticing a lot of the concept of trust is dropping like a rock in organizations, and they're having trouble even implementing AI because trust is so in the tank. And
Mm.
employee experience is somewhat in the tank at the moment because there's such a vast understanding of like what's important to me and what's important to maybe the board and to the CEO and what they think employees need to do. Trust has been broken because now the measurement is like how many times you sit in your seat and how many keystrokes and how many card swipes you have is your definition of productivity. I don't think that's, there's a big gap in that. So here is where the other part of this is just acknowledging that no matter what work is, it will always have a human, no matter what, and bring that in. And then there's a concept in that we picked up in Patagonia, which is the one involving humans in it, and then getting to this question. And it took a lot of work to get to it and was inspired by regenerative agriculture movement that Patagonia was starting, kind of their business model was changing. But it's this question. And the book ends with this because it's such a powerful thing that we believe. For what I put into my work, I believe the company gives back equal or greater value to my life. I'm going to repeat that.
That's a big one. Yeah, please.
For what I put into my work, I believe the company puts back equal or greater value to my life. And when we ask in traditional, engagement surveys, the goal, we've gotten really good at extracting things from humans, like the annual performance review. I don't know if anybody loves that. It's like the worst experience ever, and we're in charge of it. So we're in charge of humans, and we deliver the most hated experience that all humans, whether managers or employees receiving it, get it. And the annual engagement survey is like, I compare that to, for those of you in Chicago, taking a picture in July or a video of what's going on Michigan Avenue and then showing up in February, you're not going to be very comfortable. So the idea of like the employee experience is fluid. It's not a moment in time. In the past, we've designed for a specific moment and did programs and all this stuff and designed for a single moment. And everyone knew it was wrong. It was outdated. The day after the survey, it was outdated. So as we get new ability to do things and see experiences in real time, design them in real time, and to know that here's the question we ask at Patagonia. And one of the things that we did, and this is what got to this question. I asked people, those of you who are married, those of you who have kids, What is the most important thing in your life? Is your kids? Everyone's hand raised. If you're married, what is one of the most important things in your life? Your relationship with your spouse. At Patagonia, we ask as a result of benefit, as a result of this benefit, do you have a better relationship with your spouse?
Hmm.
Do you have more time to spend with your children? Do you have more time to go to the doctor, dentist? By the way, I don't know if my doctor and dentist aren't open on Saturday and Sunday.
They never are.
No,
They never are.
no. Do you have the ability to buy healthy food? Do you have time to do the things you love? We always ask the things that are within the box of work, but not how work impacts people's lives. And that's the book. It says we need to rethink how we ask the question, not just how my experience at work, but how my experience at work impacts my life. And it's the unspoken or highly spoken thing that we have a contract with work. And right now, people believe it is taking way more out of their lives than they're willing to put in.
Yeah, Dean, that's a powerful question to ask. And I put it in the chat again too, because I really appreciate the way you phrased that. As we think about Patagonia, though, I think a lot of people could say, well, Patagonia is a little different. Patagonia was built from the ground up by founders who really believed or breathed that, and they've got regenerative architecture or agriculture. There's a lot of great things Patagonia does. But you've seen this across a couple different companies, and I know you spoke to more people too. Either from your past experience working at places like Sears or other places you've worked, or from some of the stories in the book, how does someone help build that kind of culture at their company when maybe the company wasn't built that way from the ground up?
And not Patagonia wasn't built that way from the ground up. So there was a lot of changes.
That's helpful too.
In terms of, yeah. So what Patagonia's values changed, how they ran the business changed. A lot of what Patagonia was and what it is today is very different than the company that it started. There are a lot of foundational things that are similar, but it did change. But yeah, Patagonia was spectacular, and there's no way to. It was easy to do amazing work there. I'll talk about Sears and Kmart. By the way, these are Sears and Kmart, two companies that came together. Run by what the world said on the front page of one of the major publications is run by the worst leader and CEO on the planet.
It's a tough label.
I'm not saying that's my opinion, but it's just like it was published. #1 worst CEO on the planet. And really, or founder of the owner of the company. And so what do you do when you're the head of HR for not just a bad one, you got the worst one. And so what I did is that I can't change that. I can't change the situation, but I can do this. So I had a town hall with 6,000 people. We had 270,000 people. It was a Fortune 50 company at the time that I took. And so it was a large company, 270,000 employees, and 6,000 people in HR. Brought them together and I showed a big picture of two ships sinking. So we're on the Titanic, and I can't change that. The iceberg hit, and this is going down, and we all know it. So I spoke truth. Then I said, okay, since I can't change it and you can't change that, we got a lot of people on this ship with us that are terrified and having a really challenging moment in time too. So our job is to take care of all the other people on this ship. And what we're going to do is we're going to be the band. We're the band on the Titanic. And my commitment to you is you're going to play the best trombone and the best drum and the best triangle and the best cymbals and the best singer. And when this ship goes down, you're going to be on such a better ship than the one you got in on. I promise you. Because we have to help all these other people get into lifeboats. And that's our job. And so we're going to be amazing. And we won awards. We did mind-blowing things. We started this organization called TALREOS. We did a lot. We innovated. We innovated a pulse in capturing energy in a thing that we call mood ring, because nobody even thought of pulses before. and we tacked into the time clock of all the hourly associates in the warehouse and the stores and asked them their energy level, 5 different levels of energy every single day, and got 70,000 pieces a day. And for the first time, we were the only ones doing pulses and got this amazing rich data. We could predict turnover, we could predict sales, we could predict hiring people, bad manager fast. I could allocate very scarce resources there. And when we left, as a result of that time, I just found out today, there's people who really started junior in their career and mid-time in career in the HR team. There's now, counting the one I found today, who hit me up on LinkedIn, 27 heads of HR are now leading HR organizations who were junior in their career. And I'm not even counting the people like Ian O'Keefe, who started companies, or Naveen Shashrati, who's now the second in command, was the head of digital for Disney and now the second in command at Ralph Lauren. So many people who were on our team ended up in really amazing boats. And that you can do that even with you have the worst CEO on the planet. You just do what you can control. And
That's a helpful perspective, Dean. It really is. And I think the story about the Titanic, that's going to stick with me. There's a question that came in the Q&A, which I think is really spectacular. There's that sort of like, what do you do to the public? And as a CHRO, how do you interact with the public? There's that private moment as a CHRO, though, where you had to talk to the CEO, I'm sure, at some point to say, hey, I'm going to go in front of the group and talk through this plan, or I'm going to change the way we do the survey, or maybe not a private conversation asking you to kind of explain there. But as you're thinking about speaking to CEOs, as you're thinking about speaking from a CHRO or head of HR to your business leaders,
yeah.
Do you need to convince them? How do you convince them? How do you help bring them along the journey there? If you could pass some advice on to HR leaders that might be dealing with difficult managers, difficult business leaders.
Well, Gallup did a really big survey and took all the decades of research on managers. And what they found from that is 7 out of 10 are horrible. And if you train and train and teach and teach and teach and teach, you may get one of them better. So your likelihood of having a bad manager is highly likely. So there's only like 2 left out of 1 out of 10. So if you got a good one, good for you. So you're highly likely to have a challenging one. I've had some amazing ones and some challenging ones, clearly. Here is speak the language. Speak the language of the business, not the language of HR. And that's a really hard thing to get through. When you talk about results, you're like, yeah, we had 82% people complete the engagement survey. Who cares? That you got to get to the actually thing that the CEO is going to care about, because you know what the CEO cares about, what the board cares about. So what you have to do is make sure this anything you do has to be the CEO being a hero to the board, because that's who they answer to. So using their language, like this is going to impact, here are 3 things about our strategy. I know these are challenging. If we do this and this, I know this will help us get to where we need to get to on this from the people side. Or, speak their language. And I think we speak too much HR speak when we're selling things. We talk too much in the what's important to us or what's easy. You really have to speak in their language. And I didn't tell anyone at Sears I was doing the Titanic story, but I just sometimes, when I know it's right, I just do things and beg forgiveness if I know it's right. And if you want to fire me because of the Titanic story, fine. But I feel like it's so the right thing to do, and I think some CEOs want you to do that. Just do the right thing. And then, beg forgiveness if it doesn't work. And if you got a really good CEO, they'll go, great, thank you for taking a risk. I did really mess this up once, more than once, but I had massively messed it up. I convinced the leadership team and CEO of Patagonia to get rid of titles.
Get rid of titles, all titles.
Yeah, VP, SVP, EVP, Super VP, Super Duper Duper Cooper VP, all those ridiculous titles, because I think it's layered up the organization, and they're like, once you got to be VP, you always were a VP for the rest of your life, and you couldn't have a VP report to a director or director report to a VP. It's like, so much. And then I spent hours with the CEO on one person, VP or not VP. But if I make them VP, then I make the other 12 people VP because everyone's solved to the lowest level.
Hmm.
Anyhow, I can't stand them. So finally convinced them to get rid of them. And we just like, we did descriptors like, this is my work. And I did get pushback fast from people like, number one question, what do I put on my LinkedIn profile?
Ah. Yeah,
Exactly the reason I want to get rid of titles, because you have a
fascinating.
page to describe you, not one sentence on your title. Second thing, how do I know who makes decisions? Reason number two to get rid of it. Reason number three is who are my peers and who am I do I associate with? Reason number three to get rid of titles. Based on those three questions, I already knew it was a good idea. It ended up being a disaster because the world didn't change.
Hmm.
We could not exist in an ecosystem that had castes and titles. And it just was, it made it easier to hire actually, because we didn't say, someone's a VP and they could move into this role where our equivalent was a director at Patagonia. So there's some really, really powerful things that happened with it, but I could not, and I lost a lot of credibility
It was a
for
idea ahead of its
for
time, I
doing
think,
that to
because
like Dean, the guy who destroyed titles. And so there's just so much ego and
yeah.
so much status, so much tied into the caste system of humanity. I studied so many books on caste systems and how they work and why are they exist. And it's in our nature to form layers and castes. And why I don't like that part of being a human, I couldn't bust it.
A
Even if
noble
they go back
experiment.
to titles.
A noble experiment. And it's one that even just thinking about kind of AI on the scene now, how useful it would be to have a page of data about yourself instead of a title. An AI system would react much better to that, which is kind of a
Wouldn't
funny,
it? Well,
funny nature here.
the
So
thing
maybe
is,
maybe it's still got its time.
everyone on this will know a VP is not a VP is not a VP at every different company. They're SVP, EVP, KVP, JVP, whatever. They're all different. So we don't have a consistent standard. Moving from company to company for VP, EVP, XVP, whatever is different. And so anyhow,
It's a fascinating story, Dean, and it's one that's
yeah,
so I brought up AI 30 minutes in,
yeah, you
but I
did.
think one of the unique things about your book is that you don't bring up AI, and that was a bit of a deliberate decision that you told me about ahead of time. Could you walk me through that a little bit? And for the people on the call, what was that debate like on the back end as you guys were writing this book?
It showed up because you couldn't help talking about it. But what we wanted to do was make the book enduring. So not in response to AI. It certainly can apply to the moment in AI, but AI is the most recent disruption. We could have, a few years back it very well could have been COVID. A few years back it very well could have been the internet. A few years back it very well could have been social media. A few years back, like there could be, there's always going to be a disruptive event. Now AI is pretty substantial, but I'm looking forward to the next disruption, and I think it's VR, like virtual reality. When I don't have to show up for a meeting, I can send not just my bot to this meeting, but my avatar thing that looks like me, talks like me, sounds like me. Everything looks like me, except it's not me. That's coming. That already exists. So when we can meet, and it feels like if you put on the Apple Pro, we're in the room together. You can't tell the difference. So why would I need to work in an office when I can put a VR headset on and sit right next to you and it feels like we're right next to you? You can have tactic stuff where it feels like I can feel the table and I can do these things. So anyhow, AI is not the last disruption. We have more disruptions coming and AI is going to invent disruptions. So
Gosh, that's reassuring and terrifying.
it is. I always talk about technology like this. The cool to scary factor, like, oh, that's cool, that's scary. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool, that's scary. And then like, VR and AR are like, oh, that's cool, that's scary. So and all things without guardrails are a problem. Look what we did with social media. No guardrails, no thought about it, and we are really regretting the that we didn't do that and put guardrails on it. So I think we do need to think about AI and put some guardrails on it. Know that I've been studying a lot on the things that are uniquely human, like wisdom, which is a collection of my experiences. You cannot AI me, cannot AI my life. And I make decisions and judgment based on something that happened in seventh grade. Like
For better,
all
for
these,
worse.
yeah, for better or for worse. There's all things that happen in my life that surely shape that. So you can't undo me or AI me. You can fake it, but you can't. The other concept is the concept of like curiosity and wonder. So I've been working with Barbara
Mhm.
Roth, who is works with the Nomadic School of Wonder, and working with Connor Deeman at Stanford on the concept of play at work and humor at work, or Caitlin Krauss, who's at Stanford, who does digital well-being and how do we embrace technology and love it. And I've done a lot of VR work with her. And then the other conversation, like this concept of wit, like sometimes you can't take yourself too seriously. Again, I certainly don't take myself that seriously. And so those are uniquely human. So there's other things, but we do need to preserve wit and wonder and curiosity and wisdom because AI can fake wit and maybe fake wonder and fake, wisdom, but it's not real. I asked AI once, ChatGPT, when is the moment that AI is going to determine that humans are no longer necessary? And it said, well, since you asked that question, it's very human. You're curious. AI would not ask itself. The question is like, when will AI do that? We're not
It
programmed to
sounds like
ask
it's
that.
avoiding the question.
Yeah,
It's
we're
avoiding
not
the
programmed to
question
ask that
there.
question. So
We
the
know.
answer, here's the answer. It went through a whole series of things and philosophical and stuff around that answer, but here's how it ended. It said, and it's kind of anthropic me at the moment. Well, Dean, um, here's the thing. Since AI is designed by humans, here's what could happen. The things that are so powerful and wonderful that make you human, those powers and those things that make you human, you could quietly and silently, unknowingly give them away.
Hmm.
And I thought that was so powerful. Like without intention, we could give the things away that are uniquely human to AI. But if we are paying attention, just like we weren't paying attention on social media or a lot of other things, you just need to pay attention in this moment. And that's why I believe that HR needs to be firmly involved in the HR strategy.
Yeah, so let me pull it back a little bit to design
But
too,
that's
because
a
I think
book.
that's no, it's
That's
it's,
why
it's
we didn't
fantastic.
take it that we could go on this, but there's going to be a new thing, and that's why
Yeah.
we wanted this to be relevant 10 years from now, and you could still look back at this and not go, oh, that was a book written for AI, or is that for COVID or whatever. We just wanted to
Well,
endure.
I think a lot of the themes you're talking about here make a lot of sense for the design component of this too, because it's not employee experience optimization or employee experience maximization. It's how do we actually design and how are we thoughtful about it, designing this for humans at work? Could you talk a little bit about what you mean by design in that sense and how that played into the work you guys put together?
Well, the one is involving humans in design. So that's
Yeah.
and all things you design. Um, you want to think about the end result, like a product. And does it do what it's supposed to do? Is it a high quality product? If I think about how we think about product of Patagonia, the number one thing is, does it do what it's supposed to do? First, like a rain jacket, it better repel water. If you buy a rain jacket and it's sustainably made and it's beautiful and it's fashionable and you look awesome in it and you're soaking wet, you'll never buy that rain jacket again. Number one. Second thing, it is durable. So if you buy your beautiful rain jacket and it falls apart after the first rain, then probably not going to buy another one. And it goes through a whole series of things on design. And the 10th thing, sustainability. I know that's going to surprise you about Patagonia, but
Mhm.
it's number 10 on the list because all the other things have to come before it. Multi-use, a lot of things. So my point is on that, that's how I have to think about employee design. Like what's the most important thing? And how do you get to the next? And you have to think of the next and you involve the employee, but you make sure you got an outcome. It has to do what it's supposed to do. At the end of the day, we're running a business. And you could be running a nonprofit too, but let's just say you're running a business. Even Patagonia says we're in business to save our home planet. We're not to say we're here to save our home planet. Because Yvonne says if you don't have a business, you don't have a planet. So you have to design employee experiences that actually drive outcomes for the business too, not just for experience sake. You have to have this connection between, uh, you have to measure everything. Everything. Everything has to be measured. We One of the things about employee experience design is we believe in the scientific method. It's like I have a hypothesis that this particular experience will lead to better outcomes for the person and better outcomes for the company. And then you use A/B testing and do it. A good example of this is Guild, which was after COVID decided to be a remote first, fully remote company. And then, as you know, the surveys and everything came out that all the people working remote are depressed, lonely, don't like community, and don't have all these kind of mental health issues, and don't collaborate. Their careers are destroyed, and so the answer is to bring them all back into the office. I didn't buy that. So I gave this problem. And this is employee experience design. How do we design work differently? What do we do differently if we could solve for this problem? So this group of really smart people came back to me and said, here's what here's what we propose. We make a job that didn't exist before. We've done analysis around Guild where we have clusters of employees that can drive within an hour distance of each of these clusters. And we have 17 clusters. So let's design, because proximity breeds relationship. So let's meet everyone who's close together and call this community and create a thing called a community leader. And the community leader brings this community together, and this community defines what they want to do in terms of community. Some of them did volunteer work. In Chicago, they went to a lot of bars. Like they all did it. Orlando did it very differently. And we gave them more money. We paid them for that. We carved out their job, and we designed these community captains. No company we didn't go to a best practice and read a Deloitte article on how to build a community captain. We just how do we solve this employee experience problem because they're depressed and lonely and not connected? How do we build this? And we did a test before and a test after. 6 months later, Orlando, Chicago, Seattle, New York, Dallas, I feel like I belong went up 13 points. I feel safe to take risk. I'm part of a community. Depression went down. I feel like I'm connected to other people. All went down. Engagement went 6 points. At the home office, where everyone's still coming to work, down 2 points.
They're jealous.
So, you can accept the myths. And I believe in, I don't just say, hey, I don't believe your opinion either. I've got a different opinion. I'm going to use data to go, there's a way to solve this. If we just keep the definition of crazy. Here, someone told me once, and I love this. Whatever you know about what isn't working is wrong. If it's right, it'd be working. Whatever you know about what isn't working is wrong. If it's right, it'd be working. Which is kind of like the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So that's remote work. We have to be more creative. If we just do work the same exact way we were doing before. Here's a great example of remote. After we came back from Patagonia, a deaf employee came to me and said, COVID was the best thing that happened to me in my life. He said, because I really have a hard time hearing. And when everyone screens up and I'm looking at the screen, I can read all their lips.
Sure.
I can see their faces. I know who's talking. I know everything. And I am a 50 times better designer. And I can do amazing designs and do this. And now everyone's coming back and the screens are down and I'm in a room full of people and I don't know who's talking. Can you just ask everyone to put their screens back up so I can do my best work again? I was like, yes. So again, that's a simple design thing that cost me nothing. so that this person can perform their best. Those definitions are what I'm talking about, is using the scientific method, being curious, not accepting the same things we've always done, try things that are unconventional. Then that's what employee experience is about. It's not about like copying the Patagonia experience or the Gap experience or the Airbnb
Dean,
experience.
that's helpful. That's helpful, and that's rare for HR books to say, here's the tool you need to build your way out of this problem, not the thing you need to copy. And I
No.
really appreciate that about where you guys are going. I'll say as we're maybe closing out the more formal part of the conversation, we'll leave some time for Q&A open at the end.
Right.
If somebody finished reading your book today, let's say they finished it and they're being thoughtful and they're getting ready to go into work the next day, what would they feel, and what's an action you'd want them to take the next day when they get to work?
Um, I hope you feel informed. I feel like I know a little bit more about this than I did. I hope I hope that it sparks something in you that's not in the book.
Hmm.
Like ideas create other ideas, so I hope you like take whatever it is you read in it and it creates three more ideas that are 10 times better. That's what I hope. And then you go back and we don't accept that right now employee experience is the tank just because it is. I don't accept that. I I think we can drive extraordinary employee experiences, and people come to work and have better relations with their spouses, better relations with people around, not feel like lonely and depressed. We just have to rethink work all the time. We just can't keep papering over the things. I feel like right now we're just kind of AI-ifying everything that we did, and we're not really reinventing work. It just feels like the AIification of everything. That's why I love the new job I'm going to. This is not an AIification of anything. It's brand new. So that's what I hope. I hope they have better ideas than we had, and I hope they take this book. And here's what I hope it's done with this. It's like it's like outlined and rugged and torn and
Yes.
got coffee spilled on it. I hope it's a disaster. I hope it's a mess because and then you go back to it and open like, what was that one thing that says cool? That's what I hope. I hope the book looks like it's just ripped up to pieces.
And then you get the special edition hardcover one to put on your shelf later. That's the best
January
case scenario.
27th.
There you go, January 27th. Dean,
January
we'll wrap
27th.
up the formal part of this conversation right here. But just a huge thank you from me for everyone on the call. A lot of positive reactions in the chat, a lot of positive excitement around this. Dean, where can people find your book best? And again, what date does it release?
It is right now available pre-order. So get your orders in because we're going to have a limited number of prints, and those pre-orders, the ones who get those in, are most likely to get hard copies on January 27th. So hard copy comes out then, Audible comes out then, all that. So if you're Teams or other ones, so you can do two things. One, if you go on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, it's available. It's easy to find because now the search is pretty. You can put employee experience design and you can find them both there. If you're, we'll have a website up which we're working on right now, but that's the best way to find the book, and it'll be available and hopefully at your local bookstore. So Barnes and Noble's excited about it, and where a lot of bookstores are picking it up.
I love that. Dean, thank you again for the recording. We'll close the recording here and we'll move into some Q&A. So thank you.